I still remember the day I bought that sprawling colonial home with my husband Jack. I was so in love, so blind to what was coming. For years he told me I was nothing worthless, just a pretty accessory to his successful life. What Jack never realized was that with each insult I grew stronger, more determined. I carefully planned my escape, while smiling through his abuse. When the perfect moment came, I took everything. If you want to know how I walked away with all his money and left him crying to his mommy, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, this story of sweet revenge is worth every second. I graduated from Northwestern with honors and big dreams of becoming a financial analyst. My professors called me brilliant, said I had a natural talent for understanding market trends. I was confident, ambitious, and ready to take on the world when I met Jack at a corporate mixer in downtown Chicago. Jack Anderson was everything I thought I wanted: handsome, charismatic, and already successful at 30 as a rising star at Meridian Investments. He swept me off my feet with expensive dinners, weekend getaways to wine country, and promises of a perfect life together. After a whirlwind 6-month romance, he proposed with a diamond that made my colleagues gasp. Our wedding was featured in a local society magazine. 300 guests, a 5-tier cake, and a honeymoon in the Maldives. I remember thinking I was the luckiest woman alive as we moved into our dream house in an exclusive suburb. The sprawling colonial with its manicured lawn and marble kitchen island was everything I had ever wanted. I decorated each room with care, wanting to create the perfect home for our future family. The first year was blissful. Jack continued climbing the corporate ladder, and I secured a position at a boutique financial firm. We entertained often, traveled on holidays, and talked about starting a family within a few years. I was living the American dream. The criticism started so subtly, I barely noticed. Small comments about my cooking. "The chicken is a bit dry tonight, Anna." Remarks about my appearance: "That dress makes you look wider than you are." I brushed these off as harmless observations. Then came critiques of my intelligence. "Let me explain this simply so you can understand," he would say when discussing financial news, despite my finance degree and professional experience. In bed at night, I would wonder why he suddenly seemed to think I was stupid when he had once praised my intelligence. The first time Jack truly humiliated me was at his company dinner. I had mentioned my ambition to eventually become a portfolio manager. Jack laughed loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "Anna is cute when she talks about finance. She thinks she understands the markets." His colleagues chuckled uncomfortably while I sat there, cheeks burning with shame. Later that night, I tried to talk to him about how he had made me feel. "You're being too sensitive," he dismissed me. "I was just joking. You know you're not cut out for that kind of pressure. You should be grateful. I support your little job." Jack gradually took control of our finances. He suggested combining our accounts for simplicity and began giving me an allowance like a child. When I protested, he said, "I make 10 times what you do. It makes sense for me to manage our money." It seemed logical at the time, but I now had to ask permission to buy anything beyond groceries and basic necessities. My friendships began to suffer. Jack would find fault with my college friends, "So immature," and my work colleagues, "They're using you." Phone calls with my parents were limited because they stress you out. Before long, my social circle had shrunk to Jack, his friends, and their wives, who seemed as submissive and quiet as I was becoming. Christmas with Jack's family marked a turning point. After we exchanged gifts, Jack handed me one final package with a smirk. Inside was a self-help book titled "Finding Your Worth in a Competitive World." "Maybe this will fix you," he said as his family watched. His mother tittered nervously, while his father nodded approvingly. I smiled through tears and thanked him, but something inside me cracked that day. The drive home was silent. That night, I locked myself in our guest bathroom and sobbed for hours, running the shower to mask the sound. Looking at my swollen eyes in the mirror, I wondered what had happened to the confident, ambitious woman I used to be. But I still smiled at breakfast the next morning, playing my part perfectly. 3 years into our marriage, Jack was promoted to senior vice president. His salary nearly doubled, and his ego expanded accordingly. Our house was featured in a local home magazine. We joined the most exclusive country club in the area, and Jack bought a sleek black Mercedes that cost more than my annual salary. With his new position came even more contempt for me. "You would be homeless without me," he would say casually over dinner. "No one else would want you," he would comment, looking at my body critically. These statements were delivered not with rage, but with calm certainty, as if he were simply stating facts about the weather. My moment of clarity came during a house party we hosted for Jack's colleagues. I was in the kitchen preparing dessert trays when I overheard Jack in his study with 2 other executives. "Marriage is a good investment," Jack was saying. "You get a free housekeeper, a presentable date for events, and someone to manage your social calendar." The men laughed. "Anna has no idea what our actual net worth is. She just smiles and takes her allowance like a good girl." The plate in my hand trembled. For the first time, rage replaced hurt. I served dessert with a pleasant smile, but inside something had fundamentally changed. That night, I made a decision: I would escape this marriage, but not empty-handed. Jack had stolen my confidence, my independence, and years of my life. I would take back everything and more. I began with small steps. Using the public library computers to avoid leaving digital traces at home, I enrolled in online financial management courses. I used my shopping money to pay for them, cutting corners on groceries and claiming sales that did not exist. During the day when Jack was at work, I studied diligently, rebuilding my financial expertise. Opening a secret bank account was trickier. I used my maiden name and my parents' address for statements. Each week, I squirreled away small amounts from my allowance. It was painfully slow progress, but watching the balance grow gave me a sense of power I had not felt in years. 6 months into my secret plan, I secured a part-time remote position as a financial researcher using my maiden name. I worked during the day, carefully erasing all evidence before Jack came home. The income was modest, but it went straight into my secret account, and the work rebuilt my professional confidence. As my financial knowledge expanded, I began to notice discrepancies in the glimpses I caught of our finances. Jack was clearly engaging in some questionable practices, possibly tax evasion. I began collecting evidence, taking photos of documents he carelessly left out, noting conversations he had on speakerphone when he thought I was not listening. My most shocking discovery came when I borrowed Jack's laptop one day when mine was broken. I had deliberately disabled it. An email notification popped up from someone named Danielle with the subject line, "Last night." My hands shaking, I opened it to find explicit references to their ongoing affair. His administrative assistant. How cliché. Rather than confronting him, I documented everything, forwarding emails to a secret account I had created. At social functions, I began cultivating a friendship with Martin Goldberg, the CFO of Jack's company. Jack actually encouraged this, believing Martin's wife was boring and that my entertaining his important colleague reflected well on him. In reality, I was carefully extracting information about the company's financial health. What I learned was invaluable. The firm was overextended, making risky investments to cover previous losses, and a downturn was imminent. While Jack worked late, likely with Danielle, I consulted with a divorce attorney recommended by an online support group for financially abused women. The lawyer confirmed what I suspected. With evidence of Jack's infidelity and financial misconduct, I could position myself for a favorable settlement. But timing would be everything. My documentation became methodical. I kept a hidden journal of Jack's verbal abuse, noting dates, times, and exact quotes. I recorded conversations on my phone when he berated me. I photographed financial documents and downloaded copies of accounts I could access. I backed everything up on a cloud service he knew nothing about. Using knowledge from my finance courses, I identified the joint assets I could legally begin transferring to my name. Small amounts at first shifted between accounts in ways that would not trigger Jack's attention. I was building a financial lifeboat piece by piece. All the while, I maintained my facade. I dressed how Jack liked, prepared his favorite meals, and endured his continuing insults with a placid smile. "If only you had a brain to match your looks," he would say, and I would force a self-deprecating laugh. I know I am so lucky to have you, I would reply while mentally calculating how much I had secreted away that week. The final straw came during a dinner party with new neighbors. The wife was a surgeon, and Jack could not stand that she earned more than her husband. Anna is purely decorative, not functional, he announced to the table. But some of us can afford ornaments in our life. The neighbors looked uncomfortable, but Jack continued. She tried working in finance once, but it was beyond her capabilities. Now she just manages the house, which is about all she can handle. That night, I added an extra $1,000 to my escape fund from our joint emergency credit card. Each insult now strengthened my resolve and accelerated my timeline. My independent savings had grown substantial, my professional network was rebuilding through my secret work, and my documentation was extensive. I just needed the perfect moment to execute my plan. The financial crisis Jack had been desperately hiding from everyone began making headlines. Tech investment giant faces liquidity questions was splashed across the business section of the Chicago Tribune. The company's stock plummeted, and I watched Jack become increasingly agitated, spending longer hours at the office and coming home reeking of whiskey. The market crash hit their high-risk investment portfolio particularly hard. Jack had leveraged our personal investments with the same reckless strategy he used at work, something I had discovered and quietly protected myself against months earlier by moving my portion to stable conservative funds under my sole control. On a rainy Tuesday, Jack came home at 2 p.m, something unprecedented in our marriage. His expensive suit was rumpled, his face ashen. He slammed the front door so hard a family photo fell from the wall and shattered. I stood in our living room, my heart racing with the realization that my moment had finally arrived. "They fired me," he said, voice hollow with disbelief. "Those ungrateful bastards fired me after everything I did for them." He hurled his briefcase across the room, barely missing an antique vase. "They are blaming the Westlake deal on me, saying I falsified projections. They are making me the scapegoat for the whole department." I watched him pace and rage, blaming everyone from the CEO to global market forces. Everything and everyone except himself was responsible for his downfall. He smashed a crystal tumbler against the fireplace, kicked over a side table, all while I stood silently watching the tantrum of a man who had told me countless times how emotionally stable and superior he was to my feminine hysteria. When he finally exhausted himself, Jack collapsed onto our sofa and looked at me with expectation. "Get me a drink. A real one. Then we need to talk about cutting expenses until I land somewhere new." I did not move. Instead, I walked to our home office and returned with a thick folder which I placed on the coffee table between us. "What is this?" he demanded, irritation replacing self-pity. "This is our divorce agreement," I said, my voice steadier than it had ever been in his presence. "It has been ready for some time. I was just waiting for the right moment." The confusion on his face would have been comical if not for the years of pain that had led to this moment. "What are you talking about? Is this some kind of joke?" "Let me be clear," I said, sitting across from him. "For the past 5 years, you have called me stupid, worthless, nothing without you." I began reciting specific instances, dates, exact quotes from my documentation. With each example, his face grew paler. "While you were telling me I was nothing, I earned a professional certification in financial management. While you called me stupid, I was analyzing your company's public filings and predicting this collapse 6 months ago. While you were sleeping with Danielle from your office, I was working with regulatory authorities documenting your financial misconduct." I opened the folder and removed a stack of papers. "This is proof that you have been evading taxes for the past 3 years. This is documentation of how you falsified loan applications using our joint assets as collateral without my knowledge. And this," I placed a final document before him, "is my job offer from Westbrook Financial as a senior consultant specializing in fraud detection." Jack's face contorted with rage. "You sneaky little bitch. You have been spying on me. No one will believe you. You are nothing without me, remember, just a pretty face playing at understanding finance." I smiled for the first time. "Actually, the Securities and Exchange Commission and the IRS already believe me. They have been building a case with my assistance for months. Your company did not just fire you, Jack. They are cooperating with a federal investigation in which you are the primary target." The color drained from his face. "You cannot do this to me." I already have, I replied. And there is more. I have legally transferred our joint assets into protected accounts. The transfers were all technically legal because you so helpfully gave me power of attorney last year when you were too busy to attend closings on our investment properties. Jack lunged for me, then his handsome face twisted with hatred. I stepped back calmly. The security cameras you installed to keep me safe are recording right now. Physical assault will not help your case. He froze, then collapsed back onto the sofa. Why? He whispered. Why would you destroy everything we built? We did not build this life together. You controlled it, shaped it to your vision, and made me a prisoner in my own home. And by the way, this house, I sold it last week. The new owners take possession tomorrow. You have until 9 a.m. to remove your personal belongings. Jack's arrogance finally shattered completely. Where am I supposed to go? You cannot throw me out of my own house. It is not your house anymore. Just like I was never your possession. I placed the divorce papers in front of him. Sign these now, and I will not pursue criminal charges for the tax evasion. Refuse and I submit everything to the authorities this afternoon. His hand trembled as he signed each page I indicated. The mighty Jack Anderson reduced to following my instructions like a child. When he finished, I gathered the papers and placed them back in my folder. Anna, please, his voice cracked, all pretense gone. I can change. We can fix this. You cannot just throw away 8 years of marriage. You threw it away every time you told me I was nothing, I replied. I am simply finalizing what you started. I walked to the door where my packed suitcases had been waiting since morning. Goodbye, Jack. As I loaded my car, I heard him sobbing inside the house that was no longer his, no longer ours. 8 years of pain and insults fell away with each mile I drove toward my new life. The aftermath of my departure from Jack was more satisfying than I had even anticipated. The investigation into his financial dealings expanded beyond tax evasion to include investment fraud and misappropriation of client funds. His professional reputation was destroyed overnight. Former colleagues who had laughed at his jokes about his decorative wife now refused to take his calls. Jack could not secure another position in finance. His name appeared in too many negative headlines, and his former company made it clear they considered him solely responsible for their losses. He attempted to apply for positions in different industries, even different cities, but the digital trail of his misconduct followed him everywhere. Meanwhile, I settled into my new apartment in a secure building in a different part of the city. It was smaller than our sprawling colonial, but every piece of furniture, every color on the wall was chosen by me alone. I would wake up each morning and drink coffee on my small balcony, relishing the silence and freedom of a life without constant criticism. Jack eventually had to move back to his hometown in Ohio, into his elderly mother's small ranch house. His father had passed years ago, and his mother lived on a modest pension. From his social media posts, which I monitored from an anonymous account, I could see how quickly he aged. His designer clothes were replaced by discount store items, his once meticulous appearance growing increasingly disheveled. The calls began about a month after our divorce was finalized. At first, I blocked his number, but they kept coming from different phones. Sometimes 30 or more calls in a day. Voicemails ranged from tearful apologies to rage-filled threats, then back to desperate pleas. I saved every message as additional documentation for the restraining order I eventually had to file. The divorce settlement was even more favorable than my lawyer had predicted. With the evidence of emotional abuse, financial misconduct, and infidelity combined with Jack's new desperate circumstances, the judge awarded me 70% of our assets. The remaining 30% was mostly consumed by Jack's mounting legal fees as he fought the federal investigations. My healing journey was not instantaneous. I found a therapist specializing in emotional abuse recovery, attending weekly sessions where I gradually unpacked how I had allowed myself to become so diminished in my marriage. There were days when I still heard Jack's voice in my head telling me I was worthless, incompetent, nothing without him. Silencing that voice was the hardest part of my recovery. Slowly, I rebuilt my support network. I reconnected with college friends Jack had deemed too immature, finding them now successful professionals with families of their own. I made new friends through professional organizations and a women's investment club I joined. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who valued my intelligence and respected my opinions. My career at Westbrook Financial flourished. I specialized in helping identify financial abuse and fraud with a particular focus on assisting women trapped in financially controlling relationships. Each client I helped free themselves felt like another victory, another refutation of Jack's claim that I was nothing. 6 months after I left him, I encountered Jack by chance at a coffee shop near the courthouse where he was appearing for another hearing. His expensive watch and designer suit were gone, replaced by a bargain store outfit that hung on his newly gaunt frame. When he saw me, his eyes lit up with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Anna," he approached my table, ignoring the people around us. "You look amazing. I have been trying to reach you." I regarded him calmly, feeling nothing but a distant pity. "I am aware. The restraining order specifies you should not approach me." "I just need 5 minutes," he pleaded, the arrogant man who once commanded boardrooms, now hunched and begging in a public cafe. "Everything fell apart without you. I lost everything. I know now what you meant to me." "No, Jack," I replied steadily. "You lost everything because of your own actions. I simply stopped enabling them. I gathered my things to leave. Please respect the restraining order. I do not want to have to report this." As I walked away, he called after me. "I still love you, Anna. I always loved you." I did not look back. The truth was, revenge had never been my primary goal. What I wanted was to reclaim my life, my identity, and my power. The satisfaction came not from seeing Jack suffer, but from rediscovering the strong, capable woman I had always been beneath his criticisms. The most important lesson I learned through this ordeal was that no one can define your worth except you. Jack spent years telling me I was nothing without him, and I almost believed him. It took losing everything familiar for me to gain something invaluable, the unshakable knowledge of my own value. I often reflect on the warning signs I missed, the subtle criticisms that grew into outright insults, the isolation from friends and family, the financial control disguised as protection. I share these insights now with other women, helping them recognize the red flags I overlooked. Now my future stretches before me, full of possibilities that are entirely mine to choose. I approach new relationships with careful discernment, but without the fear and insecurity that once defined me. I know that I am complete on my own, that partnership should enhance my life, not diminish it. If you are in a relationship where someone is trying to convince you that you are less than you are, know that their words reflect their insecurities, not your worth. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to dim your light? Share your experience in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more journeys of transformation, and share this with someone who might need to hear that they too have the strength to reclaim their power. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, the person who tells you that you are nothing without them is revealing that they are afraid of who you might become without their control.